there, little mama. Have you ever noticed that people are okay talking about money? Like, money's an okay topic, and we like to talk about what the money's going on in the government, what they're spending. We want to hear what's available in the stores that are on sale. Like, we're willing to share when we find gas prices that are cheaper. We're willing to talk about other people's money and the famous people's money, but you notice we don't really want to talk about our money. No, we don't. We don't, because maybe we're not sure. Maybe we're embarrassed. Maybe we've got a whole lot and we don't really want anyone to know because they might ask for it. You know what? God wants us to talk about money. God talked about money in the Bible. Jesus talked about money. And we've been given money not to be a master, but for it to be part of us being a steward, of being a servant. And we are to have money serve us. And we are not supposed to serve money. So as we go as moms, we deal with money all the time, right? We deal with money with groceries, with kids, with all of the things that are going on. People calling me, they probably want money. Actually, I think these people want to buy my house. What is that? Everybody's calling to buy my house. You know what, little mama? It's just the way it is. We have to learn how to manage our money. And today, on Moms Like Us, we are going to talk about it. Welcome to the Moms Like Us podcast, where moms just like you learn strategies, systems, and skills through expert interviews and real-life insight designed to take your marriage, mothering, and home to the expert level. Hi, I'm Mona Corwin, your mom mentor and host, author, international speaker, and the founder of the Moms Like Us Academy. I've been coaching moms for over 25 years, and I have some really good news for you. Motherhood isn't a natural talent. It's a skill, and you can learn it. You can crush it at motherhood instead of motherhood crushing you. So let's get to today's show. Well, as I said, this is what we want to do. We want to be able to use our money for good, and we need to talk about it. And, you know, in the Moms Like Us world, we learn things. We learn skills and systems and strategies and tools and methods to take our mothering to the next level. And to do that, we need to learn. We need to ask people that are experts. And today on our show, I have a great expert, actually two great experts. And I'm excited to be able to introduce you to them. And as always, I'm going to read his and her bio because I want to make sure that I don't miss one thing, because one thing is for sure, they are worthy of everything that has been said about them. Okay, we have today Bob and Linda Lotich. And I want to tell you something about them. First of all, I love your name, Lot, because it's a lot of information. It's a lot of good. It's a lot of everything that moms like us need. Bob is an award-winning blogger, podcaster, and the author of Simple Money, Rich Life, Achieve True Financial Freedom, and Design a Life of Eternal Impact. And I want to tell you something. Bob really gets this. His story is in that book. You're going to love it. Part of that story is at age 20, he found himself broke with $7 to his name. And he called out to God and he asked for wisdom, which is always a great place to start, wouldn't you agree? Well, God answered him, and Bob discovered a simpler and better way, more effective way to approach his money. And when he did, him and his wife implemented it, and they were able to pay their house off at age 31. And better than that, because they're believers in Jesus, they were able to give away $1 million to charities and people that were important. Because God doesn't want us just to have money for ourselves, to buy ourselves big things, although he's happy for us to enjoy our money, as Bob will tell us. But he wants us to be able to bless others with it. And Bob and Linda are great, great givers and blessers of other people. As a matter of fact, there are 50 million people that they have touched and helped with their advice and through their obedience. I want to welcome my friends. Did y'all see the pool man walk behind me? Yeah, it's just, moms like us. We do things like this. And I'm glad you're on our broadcast. Okay, we're going to bring Linda and Bob up from the green room. And we will edit this. There you are. Hi, Bob. Hi, Linda. How are you?
Hi. Good to see you. Good to chat.
Oh, I'm so glad that y'all came on our Moms Like Us show today.
Yeah, it's an honor.
I met you a while ago, and I hadn't read your book, and so I didn't know your backstory. But how fun! What a backstory, Bob. I know it's a story that you said a million times, but I really think our moms will be inspired by your first story that I loved, and I have my book with all my tabs with all the great stories in it. I have just ragged this book up. Just ragged it up. It's a great, great book. Tell us.
Make a hard.
I think your assistant is sending me a hard copy, and normally I'm like, oh no, let them bless someone else with it, and I'm like, no, I absolutely need it.
You need another one, yeah.
I know. Tell the moms the story about you on the side of the road.
Yeah. So that was my turning point in my life in so many different ways. But it goes back to I was age 20. I was taking a year off of college. I felt like God called me on a sabbatical and led me down to Florida. I'm like, great, sabbatical in Florida. This sounds great. So I was on a 7-month sabbatical in Florida in a town. I didn't know anyone. And in that whole journey, I would have told you that I'm really good at money. I work at a bank. Like, I got this thing down, like I got the money thing. I had this like pride, whatever. And anyway, so this one particular day, I'm driving my convertible, because I'm living in a beach town. It's Friday. I just got paid. I just come from the beach. Like, it was like the Instagrammer's dream before Instagram, And so anyway, so I'm doing this. I'm feeling amazing. It's like 75 degrees. It was just perfect. And my birthday was the next day. It was my 21st birthday, actually. My friends were coming down to celebrate. Like, everything was looking up and going good. But the truth was that I was actually hiding my financial mess, that I thought I can just pretend like this isn't here and like build this house of cards of robbing Peter to pay Paul and blah, blah, blah. And it's all good. Everything's working fine. And it was until my car just broke down in the middle of the road, just like stopped moving so fast. I couldn't even pull over to the side. There was a minor league baseball game going on, like 50 yards that way. So there's tons of cars driving by and everybody's looking and staring,
and no one's helping.
What the heck? I saw that. I'm like, why did,
which
God wanted to help you. He wanted to be the one.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, and I actually went because there was a police officer directing traffic. And I remember like going to ask him, hey, can you help me get my car out of the side of the road? Because there's all these cars. He's like, nope, I'm directing traffic. So I'm like, okay. So I'm doing the thing where I like have to like grab the steering wheel and push the car to the side of the road like one-handed, which is not easy. Or anybody's tried that. And anyway, and I ended up like finally getting the car over to the side of the road and climb inside. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like starting to think through like everything that's happening. And like, it's a problem that my car broke down, but I'm realizing this is going to be a big problem here because I got to get this car towed somewhere, get it fixed so that I can because I just picked up my paycheck. And so I had to take that to the bank to cash it so that I could take that money and go pay my landlord that was due in 3 hours. And so I'm like trying to figure out how is this ever going to work out? And if I didn't pay her in 3 hours, she was going to tack on a $50 late fee. And I didn't have the extra $50 because my paycheck was so small. It was just enough to cover rent. So I wasn't even like thinking about a week, a month down the road because I couldn't even go there. But like, even right now in this moment, I'm like, I'm in big trouble. And so as I'm sitting in there, like all this, like my house of cards kind of tumbling down around me and realizing I'm in a mess financially, even though I haven't admit it, and this is kind of like the fruit of it, And I remember like just having that freak out moment and like gripping the steering wheel, having tears coming down my eyes and just being like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get out of this. I'm not smart enough. Like I was wrong. Like I thought I had this all together, but I don't. And I need your help. I need wisdom. I need to know where to go from here. And that was the moment for me, because I think for so many of us, like we all have these turning point moments in our lives where it requires some level of humility to admit that we need help and to ask God for wisdom, like it says in James, to ask him for wisdom, and he's going to give it to us without reproach, liberally. So it's like, that was my first step.
That's amazing. Now, were you married to Linda at the time?
No,
No,
we
so you
were.
were learning.
I met her just a few months later, though.
Oh, so he had $10 then, right?
Maybe 15.
But did you have a plan? Did you had a new plan?
So out of that, God he led me to the Bible. The Bible talked about money. Whoa,
Oh,
who knew?
shocking.
Like I was blown away, and it talks a lot of wisdom that's still relevant for us today, type of thing.
Yeah.
So like he led me there, and then I just began devouring every book, magazine I could get my hands on, and just continuing to learn about what I thought I knew about, but then I realized that's the thing. Once you start learning, you're like, oh wow, there's so much more that I didn't know, and so that's where it began. And then from there, started developing a plan. By the time I met her, I mean, I was half a step ahead of her, like she had a whole bunch of credit card debt.
You had, like, you like to say that, but you had the desire to learn.
Yeah.
And you were you were like making changes.
Yeah. I was underway and I was making changes, but still very much a mess in progress. And we were just on our way together,
Yeah. So Linda, this part isn't in the book. So like, how was that when you saw this guy and he was super cute and he seemed really funny, but he had $15 then? Like, did you know? Because were you fiscally good at what you did?
No, I was in a terrible position. I actually had a bill collector calling me while I was living at my parents' house with a full-time job and like 2 bills. So it's not like, I mean, I was in a pretty bad position, but I was watching him. So we were friends for about 2 years, I think, before we started dating. And I was watching him, and I was listening to what he would talk about and listening to what he was interested in. And he was extremely driven, and he was making strides forward. Like I could tell he was like, I'm not ever doing that again. So this is what I'm going to do to change that. And I mean, I actually was like, well, this is great. So when we get married and we get engaged, I'm kind of like, so here you go. Here's my mess. What can you do with this? And it worked out really well in the beginning for both of us because he was super interested in fixing things. I mean, he still is, but in that moment, he was like, yes, let's fix this. We can do this. And I was interested in not having to think about it anymore. So I was like, just take it. And he was kind of like, all right, here we go. And I was like, see ya.
But there was a point in your journey where you went, oh, wait a minute, because you're okay with it now and you actually think it's fun. And that's one of the things I liked about the book, because my husband would be the saver and I would be the spender. I didn't have bill collectors, but I really had $200 when I got married to Warren. Like that's all I had. And so I never really got that it was fun. I finally figured out that I needed to do it because I wanted to please Warren. But you figured out, hey, this can be fun. So when was the moment that you went, hey, I'm all in, let's go?
So it took me a while. Like there would be things that I would see glimpses of things where Bob would buy something like a larger purchase, and I would go, where are you getting the money for that? Can I have some of that magic money? Because it just seemed to appear out of thin air to me. It
was actually budgeted, but she just had no idea.
I'm like, can I get in?
She wasn't looking.
Right. I really wasn't looking. But we went to a financial class when we were probably married for about 5 years, maybe a little bit more. And it was like the lights went on. And I was like, what have we been doing? Why haven't we done this, or this? And he was like, okay.
They taught everything that like I had been saying.
Yeah,
but it's it came from another voice.
It came from another voice, but it was like the Holy Spirit clicked it in my head, you know? And
That's
so
true.
that was when I got on board. So we were married for a while, and we had lots of conversations. There were tears. Like, it wasn't like an easy road for us, but once we went through that class, it got us on the same page. And even though things were still difficult and we still had to make hard choices and there was still work involved, it was like we were pushing something forward together. I
Yeah, it
remember
was unity.
there was this time when we moved and we had rented a trailer, and we went to return this trailer because we didn't want to keep it another day and have to pay another day, right? And for some reason, there was no one there, and we decided to unhinge this thing from our car on a downward slope. Okay? And this thing starts to roll,
It
and
wasn't
so
well
we're
thought
like
out.
leaning up against it. Like, oh no, I'm trying to walk it down to level ground.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
And you do nothing but laugh. Like, we were laughing the whole time because it was like, how did we get ourselves in this position? And now we're just here, but at least we're together.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it is. It's like, at least we're together. At least we can move this thing together, move it forward together. And once you do it that way, it becomes a lot more fun instead of it becoming just this bummer all the time. Yeah. Once you get on the same page, it really is. It's not easy always, but it is a lot more fun.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really liked about the book. And I mean, we could talk about all the stories in here. I just love the stories. Linda has little inserts of her after he's been writing, and those are all so good. Like, I know this is a money book, but Mama Mona enjoys reading them, kind of, sort of, because I have to. But this one was actually pleasant, and I really enjoyed reading it. And so I can't recommend it enough. The Torah story was funny. We're not going to talk to that one. Everybody can read that one in the book. Some of the titles of the chapters, like, I laughed out loud. I was sitting out on my back porch. You've been in my back porch. I was sitting out on the Chase Lounge, and I was reading I got to chapter 6, and the title is Adjust. If you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. And I just started cracking up. I'm like, you know what? That probably never would have occurred to me. I'm a smart girl, but it never would have occurred to me to, like, quit spending.
Yeah.
And I know there's other moms out there like that. Like, you guys know I'm a smart girl. I have learner in my top 5. Like, I am a learner, and I just couldn't get this money thing. But I mean, Warren kind of, you know the story. I mean, we don't need to tell our story, but they shut the water off more than a couple times, because it's not because the money wasn't even there. Like, one time, it was like 4 or 5 years ago, Max was at home, and I'm like, the cleaning lady's upstairs, and she goes, Miss Mona, there's no water upstairs. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what this means. So I ran to my book, and I'm looking through the book, and I'm like, did I really forget? We were on vacation. Like, did I forget? And sure enough, I had. I ran out, and the man was walking down the street, and I'm like, please turn my water back on. But it was just something like it just wasn't fun. If there was something more fun to do, I would do it. And you know that when they shut your water off, it doesn't mean you missed 1 month, right? You know that. It means you missed 2 months. And this is the 3rd month. I'm like, how did I miss 3?
See, it's funny because here, our water gets turned off if you are late like 3 days.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. No, not down here. They absolutely will call you. They will give you an opportunity.
Oh my God.
I probably didn't take the calls. Anyways, all that to say, that was a hilarious title. Another one was, wait a minute. Okay, a good one was The Battle's Not His, but you have to show up. That one wasn't funny, but it was just like, oh, of course. Huh?
The battle is his.
The battle is his.
What did I say? The battle's not his?
Not his.
Yeah.
God,
there you go.
Ours.
That's no wonder I got things messed up. And then the other one was find about your gifts and your callings, which I really like that one. That chapter, it says fish don't climb trees. And I had to sit there for a minute and go, how does this relate to money? But it does relate to money, because in your book, you talk about not just like how to remember to pay your bills on time. You also talk about like you're finding money for the things you love. Like when you find things that you love to do, you should be doing them. Like you should find things that are fun to do. And that was amazing. And then practicing the no muscle. Bob, you want to talk about that? Because maybe we're not the ones to talk about the no muscle.
Yeah, I mean, I think
We hate it.
I hate the no
I'm just
muscle.
convinced. I'm just convinced that telling yourself no is a really powerful thing. Because if you look at the inverse of it, like you take child stars, who grow up as celebrities who never hear no. Everyone around them is a yes man, and they're constantly hearing yes. What happens to them? Like almost all of them like get really weird, because they never hear no. Like it's such an important thing for us to do. And the Bible says we should discipline ourselves for the purpose of godliness, and part of that is just hearing no once in a while. So it's good for us to have something to bump up against once in a while. And the truth is that if we honestly look at really anyone who we know or we hear a story of who is one of those people who just says yes to whatever they want the moment they want it, like that's never a successful life.
Yeah.
Like you can't do that. Like everything you want, every time you have an impulse in your flesh, you do that thing. It's like you won't be married anymore. Like you won't have any money for sure. Like you're going to have a miserable life. I mean, you'll be on whatever, some sort of substances. Like, so that's just not the answer. That's not the path. And so we all know that succeeding in a life requires some aspect of telling ourselves no. And so I think the more that we do that, the better we get. And so that's why it is like a muscle. And that's, part of what we're talking about in the book.
That's really good. And another thing that I actually told myself no to, believe it or not, that I believe in saying no to, because I taught my kids that. And when you become a mom, you learn real quick that they need to learn how to say no. But until that time, you don't necessarily apply it yourself. But one of the things we did not do is we never used a credit card and we never automated anything, because once I got a hold of the fact that I was responsible for my husband, you're responsible for this. And I was responsible for the investing. And he always said, I make the money, she spends it, and we're both really good at what we do. And so I felt I took on a big responsibility. And as a learner, then I wanted to know. So I learned about investing and everything. And then it became fun for me. But I wanted to know where everything was at. So it was hard for me to go to automated. And then credit cards, back when we were first married, you couldn't get a credit card unless you were rich. And of course, the culture is, do you think there's like an evil plot to keep us all in this money bondage with the credit cards and stuff? Because you do tell us that we can use credit cards, and you lay out exactly how that needs to be done. So you want to quickly tell the moms how to do that?
Yeah, so there's a lot we could go on here, but yeah.
Well,
So
one really good point that's important to know, other than pay it off at the end.
I'll take you through our story. So yeah, I mean that's part of it. But when we first got married, we had both gotten ourselves in trouble with credit cards, and so we didn't use credit cards for 7 years. And that's what I recommend. Like you have to be honest and know yourself. Like if you can't use a credit card and use it responsibly, then you shouldn't be using it, because it's going to harm you. And so I often say that it's like a chainsaw. It's like it is a tool that is super helpful in some ways, but it's also very dangerous. And so I wouldn't give my 8-year-old son and say, hey, go back there and cut that tree down with that chainsaw, But for me, I know how to use it. And if a tree falls in the yard, it's going to make my life a whole lot easier than an axe or whatever, a knife. And so, so that's how we have to view it. It is a tool that can be used, but it's a high-powered tool that, we just have to be aware of the dangers of it. So in our case, we created 3 rules that we decided we're going to follow these 3 rules if we're going to use credit cards again. So after 7 years, we got a credit card and these are our new 3 rules. The first was that we're never going to carry balance on it. And so we created a rule that if we ever carry balance on it, we're going to cut them up and be done. Because if you're not carrying a balance, then you're never paying anything to the credit card company. I'm generally speaking, you might have an annual fee or something like that. But, and so that right there, can really pretty much will keep you out of trouble if you just do that one thing. And so that was like kind of the first rule. And then what was our other rule?
There's
It was like
3.
The
that.
one that worked.
No, there's another one. Trying
There's
to remember
3.
it. Forgetting my book, Mona. Forgetting exactly
I'm
where
sorry.
I
That happens to me when I'm doing interviews for my
remembered it.
what?
I remember. So we also decided we were never going to use it for discretionary expenses.
Oh, right.
That's
Okay.
what. Yeah.
And so this eliminates the temptation. That's what's powerful about this. So I don't take into Lowe's. She doesn't take into Nordstrom. I mean, it might literally be in her wallet, but the point is we don't spend it in those stores because there's a temptation to overspend.
Mhm.
Now, paying our electric bill, I have no temptation to overspend on our electric bill. And therefore, I can use that without dealing with that temptation. And so for us, that was another important rule. Because it's like if we can eliminate that temptation to overspend on it, that's going to help a lot as well. And then our third rule was that if we're going to do this, like it needs to have some value that exceeds just using a debit card. And so for what that meant for us is like if we're going to use one, we're going to get the best rewards card we can. We're not just going to get some random. They gave us a free T-shirt to sign up for. We're going to get something where it actually gets some real value out of it.
Yeah.
And so that became a big help for us because I began researching and figuring out like the best credit cards to use, for our situation, all this stuff. And then we were actually getting value out of the cards instead of being harmed by them.
Right. I know tons of people, and I'm sure you do, that's their reason why they allow themselves to have the card.
Yep.
And so if you're not using those cards in Nordstrom's, when you go in or Target or wherever, what do you use?
Yeah, so we use a debit card for a good amount of our spending. And this is all part of our budgeting method, our real money method, that whatever's our proprietary budgeting method. And so that whole thing, like we use a debit card for most of our spending that falls into that discretionary thing. And so if she went to Nordstrom, if I went to Lowe's, that's what we would use there. And so that comes directly out of a category that we have assigned for whatever, home improvements or something, if it's from Lowe's for her, whatever,
Or
her
hair
personal
money,
spending, or
whatever.
Yeah. So it's basically you have a bank card and you have a credit card, right?
Yep.
And you don't use your bank card as credit card.
Right.
Nope.
Because some people do that too.
Yep. That's a bad idea.
It's a bad idea.
idea.
Well, because I think that there's not a lot of teaching on how to use this properly. And especially with the Christian perspective, which this book is loaded with Christian principles and about giving and earning everything that you can, saving every can, giving all you can, and enjoying it all. And it reminds me of the scripture in Ecclesiastics where, it's like everything is fleeting, nothing's important. And then it gets down to this one beautiful little, I remember when we bought our first house and we paid it off and all that. And I remember just thinking that God gives us the ability to feel the pleasure of doing things like that. And so, but it's God given. That pleasure is God given. And looking to him for that pleasure and looking at everything. It's so funny. Somebody even asked me the other day, you've lived in your house 14 years. I'm like, yeah, I know. Redecorated 3 times. And they're like, aren't you going to miss it when you're gone? I'm like, yeah, it's funny. I never really have felt like this is my house. You know what I mean? It's the house that we live in. It's our house. It's our home. But even when I describe it, I'm like, oh man, that lady that built this house, when she put those plugs down there, like that was so smart. And they're like, but you've lived here longer than she ever did. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but because we just really don't see it as ours. And when I don't know when we detached from our finances, but still kept the responsibility. But I think it brought a freedom for us that money never became the biggest thing in our life. You know what I mean? Other things were more important than money. You've been so kind to talk to us. We could talk a long time. Plus, I just enjoy your company.
Same here.
The moms need to know that this is the book. If you're in the Moms Like Us Academy, we're going to be talking to Linda later about some other things that have to do with being a mom and a wife to a man that is a money guy or if you're the money girl, but we're going to be talking about some real foundational stuff about the heart of a mom and heart of a wife when it comes to following her husband and being there for her kids and finding true contentment. So the Moms Like Us Academy girls, you're going to get a real treat when we talk to Linda in one of our master classes coming up. And if you're not in that Moms Like Us Academy, you need to go get on the waiting list. The doors open once a year, sometimes twice a year, and we'll be opening them again soon. So get on the waiting list so you can know, because it's only open for a short little time, and then bam, I close it, because all of Mama Mona gets put into her girls in the academy. I want the moms to realize that this book, as great as it is, and this interview, this podcast that you've been taking notes on, or you've been saying, yes, I want that. Yes, I want that. You're probably going to forget the podcast in a couple of days. You might remember the book for a month or so, but doing the skilled things that they have in the back, I'm trying to find one. Like, there are actual exercises within the book on each chapter. And if you just want to, like right in the middle of one of the chapters, it's so good because it'll say, hey, if you want to just get right to it, here's the page to go to. And you can go straight and start working on that one thing. You don't have to go to all the way to the end of the book and then start working on it. So the book's laid out really, really well. But even that isn't going to be enough for you to really make the changes that Bob and Linda's courses are going to make. Those courses are the ones that are going to make the difference. When you invest in actually learning how, in a systematic way that's taught by experts, then you can make the real changes. Don't delay and just, hope that you're going to get it from a podcast or an Instagram post. Take a course. Take Bob and Linda's course. And our kids have taken it, and it just changed everything that they did. Well, some of the stuff, because of course we taught them good too. But we didn't teach them good about the credit cards, right? So there are things that are new and coming up that other people can help with. And Bob and Linda is that source. And I'll put their name and the course and all of that in the thing below. And just once again, thank you guys. Just love you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us, Mona. Appreciate it.
Really did great, guy. Okay, little mamas. You know what? I want to tell you something. We're going to say goodbye to Bob and Linda because I want to talk to my girls for a second. Say goodbye, Bob and Linda. Hey, girls, I just want you to know it's really, really important that you find the time to learn how to manage money. Your man works hard all day long. And even if you're working hard all day long, he's going to battle to provide for you. And as a man, he wants to know that he can lead, feed, project, and provide for his wife and his kids. And when you just go out and just throw money around, you don't realize it. But, when you throw $50 away, like how long did it take your man to make that? Like how hard did he have to work? Yes, he gets to go out to lunch with other people, and you may not get to. But you know what? You're his girl. And he's battling the world for you. So it's good to learn how to do it right. It's the thing that made me want to do it right. When I saw how hard my man was working, and I thought, wow, that took him 2 hours to do that, and I spent that in 15 seconds. I learned to do it right. And he will appreciate it so much. Okay. Moms like us, we do things like this. And I want you to know that when we do, I want you to be there. Bye for now.